Ange draws back his hand, grunting in pain. Muki grabs his hand to see how much damage the hot iron has caused on Ange's hand. Seeing that Ange's hand is an angry red color, Muki furiously shouts at Ange for putting himself in harm's way. Ange tries to explain, but words fail him. In a soft voice, Muki asks Ange if his hand hurts too much. The gentleness in his voice surprises Ange. Tearfully, Ange asks himself how Muki could be so caring even when Muki thinks that Ange plans to run away from him. The man is head over heels in love with you. Luo screams at Muki, calling him various names. He demands that Muki let Ange go and not touch him. Muki is losing patience with this man and orders a guard to teach Luo a lesson. The guard swiftly complied. The iron burns hotly as the guard puts a brand on Luo's skin. Ange is saved from looking at the ghastly sight with Muki, making sure that he is not facing towards Luo. Luo grunts in pain, his face showing how much torture he's enduring. Unable to keep himself from looking, Ange turns to see what's happening. At the sight of Luo in extreme pain, Ange escapes from Muki's grasp and runs towards Luo. Luo can only repeatedly apologize for not taking Ange away as he promised. Ange places his hand gently on the brand-marring Luo's skin. He insists that it is not Luo's fault but his. It is Ange's actions that make Luo suffer. To Ange's credit, he did try to send him away. Watching Ange fawn over Luo makes Muki angrier by the minute. The thought that Ange chooses Luo over him turns his anger from a quiet simmer to a boil. Ange begs Luo to go home to Yunlo, where he will be safe. To free Luo, Ange tries to untie the ropes that's keeping Luo on the wooden cross. Muki stops him by grabbing his hand and asking if Ange has gone crazy. Now that Ange had a good look, the ropes tying Luo to the cross are ridden by thorns. Ange's hand has been bleeding. The stress of the situation made him unable to feel the pain. With tears streaming down his face, he looks at Muki. The sight of his tears made Muki's anger reach new heights. His blood boils and Ange shedding his tears for another man. He grabs Ange's hand and drags him towards the door. Ange does not want to go and asks Muki what he plans to do. Muki only tells him to come with him. Muki's grip hurts Ange, and the smaller man demands that Muki let him go. In Muki's bedroom, Muki does not let go of him. Ange begs him to let him go. He wanted to go back to Luo as the man was suffering from many injuries. Muki pushes Ange on the bed, and Ange grunts in pain. Towering over Ange, Muki unwraps his belt as he looks down on Ange. He shows Ange his displeasure at seeing him worry about another man and for trying to escape. Ange must be spoiled to think that he can get away with defying Muki constantly. Muki looks at him without mercy. Ange can only cry as he watches Muki, understanding what the crown prince plans to do. Ange shakes in fear as he begs Muki not to go through with it. Muki grabs his wrists and pins them on the bed above Ange's head. He punishes Ange for discarding Muki's love when the crown prince has been treating him so well. Muki ties his belt around Ange's wrists, asking the former monarch why he should show him any leniency. Ange cannot stop himself from crying. He knows that he is powerless against Muki. A grunt of pain can be heard from inside the crown prince's bedroom. Outside, the flowers open their petals, soaked by the evening rain. The scene change is a great euphemism for what happened between the two. When morning came, water droplets dripped off the roof of the eastern palace. Muki dresses himself while Ange continues to lie in the bed. The thick blanket covered his whole body and face. The room is unusually untidy, with clothes thrown haphazardly to the floor. Unbothered, Muki makes himself look presentable. Once done, he sits on the bed beside Ange and touches Ange's head. He gently coaxes Ange to get his attention. Still, Ange refuses to face him, demanding Muki leave him alone. He has all the right not to want to see your face right now. Muki tells him not to be too upset as his beloved Luo is still alive and kicking. He tells Ange to stop crying. Upon hearing this, Ange peeks from under the blanket. Muki plans to keep Luo alive as he wants to know the nature of Luo's and Ange's relationship. Jealous much. Ange pulls down the blanket to reveal his displeased expression. He insists that Luo is not his beloved. He rejoices internally at the thought that Muki has kept Luo alive. Seeing Ange care for the other man too much, Muki's mood soured. Wrapping the blanket around the naked Ange, he carries him in his arms. To Ange's mortification, he demands that Muki put him down and not touch him. He tries to get away from the crown prince's iron arms. Muki tells Ange that if he does not want Muki to touch him, he must be partial to having other people attend to him. The exposed skin on Ange's shoulders is ridden with love marks. Muki tells him that if Ange does not mind seeing others see him in his current state, he can call on his servants to dress Ange, realizing that his body is littered with love marks. Ange holds onto the blanket tighter and curses Muki. Muki teases him that if he has the strength to curse Muki, Ange must not have learned his lesson. Ange looks at him tearfully. I think he had enough for now. Leave him alone. Muki finds his response very pitiful and kisses the top of his head to assure Ange. He tells Ange that if he is feeling tired, then he can spend the day resting as long as he stays good and does not piss off Muki. Ange tries to retort that it is Muki who starts their fight by bullying him. Still, before he can finish his sentence, a wave of drowsiness overcomes him, and he falls asleep on Muki's chest. Ange dozes off while Muki watches him sleep. Muki knows Ange is just trying to act strong before him, but he knows his beloved, so he shall not punish him. He, at least, considers Ange's upbringing as a monarch who seldom bows to people. With Ange sleeping soundly in his arms, Muki tells a guard to imprison Luo in the dungeon and to get the Imperial physician to attend to Luo's wounds. He can't allow Luo to die. The guard quickly left to do his bidding. In the Eastern Palace's bath pool, two maids greet Muki, their heads bowed in respect for the crown prince who carries his beloved in his arms. They tell him that they have prepared the medicinal bath as the prince instructed. Muki tells them to leave, and they comply quickly. Muki steps into the pool with Ange in his arms, soaking the ends of his robes. He sits at the pool's edge, placing Ange on his lap. The feel of water soaking his feet wakes up Ange. He looks up and sees Muki's face. Muki realizes that Ange has been resisting him previously, but now he clings to him, not wanting to let go. Ange grunts in his sleep. Muki thinks that Ange must be thinking about him. Muki remembers that when Ange got sick, he asked the Imperial physician why Ange had not yet awakened. The Imperial physician tells him that Ange is simply tired. He offers to prescribe a medicinal ointment concocted to help Ange recover. If the ointment is applied to his body daily, he will surely recover in just 2 days. Is this the early version of Vicks Vapor Rub? However, Ange's long-term recovery is not guaranteed. As long as the toxins are inside his body, he will not be able to recover fully, and he may have a relapse that might forfeit his life. Muki tells him that if he needs any ingredients for the medicine, the Imperial doctor can ask his servants and guards to fetch them for him. However, should the doctor fail to find a cure, he shall be punished for his lack of skills. The doctor nervously accepts his commands. That's an entirely different take on working under pressure. Meanwhile, Ange suffers from a vivid dream. He finds himself in a crowd of strangers, seemingly lost. From afar, a boy calls to him, beckoning him. He is relieved to see the boy and calls out to him. The boy is Muki. Ange reaches out his hand to grab Muki's hand. They hold hands in the crowded street. Muki smiles at him, happily reminding him that Ange promised to give him a tour of Yunle and cutely chastises him for forgetting. Ange looks at him dumbly, wondering when he ever made such a promise, but in his dream he promises Muki to take him to all the beautiful places in Yunle. Ange opens his eyes. The promise he made in the dream seemed to shock him to wakefulness. Ange is jolted awake from the dream. He sits up abruptly, and Muki is immediately by his side to comfort him, calling him by his pet name. Ange is surprised to see the subject of his dream hovering by his bed. Ange realizes that what he saw is merely a creation of his subconscious and is far from reality. Muki grabs Ange's hand and asks him who Ange has dreamed of. Ange denies dreaming about anyone and simply tells Muki that he does not remember. Ange is confused. He wonders why he dreamt about promising to give Muki a tour of Yunle. He does not understand why he would even dream of such a thing. That's basically how dreams work. It could get wild and you can't control it. Seeing Ange's disappointment at seeing him when he woke up, Muki suspects that Ange must have dreamt about Luo. Tugging on Ange's wrist, he asks him if he has been dreaming about Mei Luo. He accuses Ange of dreaming about returning to Yunle with Luo. Ange cannot process why Muki would even think that he has been thinking about Luo when it is Muki's carefree smile that haunts his dreams. Because you don't communicate. Muki asks if Ange has ever slept with Luo. Surprised by the question, Ange quickly answers that he has done no such thing. Luo and Ange grew up together and became the best of friends. The gap between their status is very prominent. Ange is the monarch of Yunle, while Luo is his courtier. Their relationship is not romantic at all. Ange is also sure that Luo has many concubines and prefers women. At the sight of Muki's darkening gaze, Ange stops himself. It is probably useless to explain anything to Muki, as he would never believe anything Ange says. Unexpectedly, Muki smiles. He teases Ange for acting nervous when there is nothing between him and Luo. Ange is at a loss for words. Petulantly, he tells Muki that he will also take many concubines so that people will not suspect anything is happening between him and Muki. Ange realizes that his attitude will only make Muki angrier, but he can't help himself. The Crown Prince yet again shows his unpredictable side. Instead of being angry at Ange, he hugs and puts his chin on Ange's head. He tells Ange to spend the rest of the day in bed to improve his health. He even offers to apply the medicine to Ange. He promises Ange that he no longer has to deal with any hardships. This guy switches from hot to cold rather quickly, or murderous to angelic. Ange faces him, his eyes pleading. He explains that Luo is acting out of loyalty to Ange, as the man has served him as a courtier in the past. Luo still believes that Ange is his master. He begs Muki to let the Luo go. His response made the look in Muki's eyes darker. With warning lacing his voice, Muki tells Ange that he shall apply medicine to him. Ange grabs Muki's outer robes, begging him to promise Ange that he shall let Luo go. Muki asks him what Ange would do for him in exchange for keeping Luo safe. Leering over Ange, Muki grabs Ange's belt while pushing the former monarch down on the bed. Ange stops him. Muki asks Ange if he does not want to sleep with Muki. Ange grits his teeth. With a shaking hand, he touches Muki's robes and places his head on Muki's chest, showing his willingness to serve him. Another day in the Crown Prince's bedroom, a maid wakes Ange up, offering him his breakfast. She is also tasked to help him get dressed. Ange opens his eyes and sits up. He tells her that he shall get dressed himself. Shakingly, Ange puts on his boots while the maid puts the bowl containing Ange's medicine on the table. She insists on helping him get dressed. She tells Ange that he has not yet fully recovered, which worries the Crown Prince. He even asked her to bring the medicine bowl to Ange, insisting that she watch him finish the whole bowl. It occurs to Ange that Muki usually wakes him up and asks the maid where the Crown Prince is. Ange is thinking about Luo, who risked his life to save him. The Crown Prince may show leniency by not ending Luo's life abruptly, but he will not bother to treat his wounds. Ange concocts a plan to bring medicine to Luo to treat his injuries. How very thoughtful of Ange. The maid answers that the Crown Prince is in the Imperial Academy, helping the royal members review their lessons. He will be there for a long time. She assures Ange that he should not worry. Ange hesitates, his face ridden with guilt. He turns away from the maid, giving the excuse that he is not feeling well and wants to go for a walk. When Ange steps out to the garden, he is stopped by two guards. Ange tells them that he only wanted to take a stroll. One of the guards answered that the Crown Prince ordered them not to let Ange venture too far from the Crown Prince's room and asked Ange to excuse their rudeness. Ange looks down dejectedly, knowing that Muki does not trust him and has been keeping tabs on him again. Feigning disinterest, he tells the guards that he does not care. Ange somehow finds a way for the guards to allow him pass and is able to reach the dungeon gate. The prison guards raise their spears to prevent him from entering the dungeons. Ange tells them that he was permitted by the Crown Prince to go wherever he likes and challenges them to stand in his way, thus disobeying the Crown Prince's orders. The guards hesitate. Knowing that they are facing the Crown Prince's favorite, how can they challenge his words? Ange barges past their spears before the guards can even think to stop him again. He walks briskly, thinking that he shall leave immediately as soon as he's able to deliver the medicine to Luo. He can't allow for another misunderstanding to happen. In the Imperial Academy, the Crown Prince teaches his siblings. Those are cute little princes. The young members of the royal family watch him write the memoirs in awe, complimenting his handwriting. He instructs them to hold their brush steadily and push the tip back when they start with their calligraphy. He encourages them to practice while patting one of his siblings' heads. He ushers them to give it a try, and they thank him sweetly for his time. Aw, these cuties, don't adore your brother too much. He's a little crazy. The sweet moments between the siblings are interrupted by hurried footsteps belonging to Muki's personal guard. He reports to Muki that Luo Ange went to the dungeon. Muki's anger resulted in his nicely written memoirs being ruined. He slams his hand on his desk and spits out his beloved's name angrily. Back at the dungeon, Ange shivers as he walks deeper into the dark passages. The dungeon was designed like a labyrinth, and Ange finds it difficult to navigate inside. He also has no idea where Luo is being kept. Ange has never seen a dungeon as dark and complicated as the Eastern palaces. Suddenly, he hears someone calling for help. When Ange turns his head, he sees that a part of the dungeon is on fire. The poor souls behind the cells beg for someone to come aid them. Ange shakes in fear. He does not expect to encounter such tragedy in the dungeon. The sound of explosives reverberates in the already chaotic dungeon, and a group of masked men rushes in. The prison guards draw their swords, attempting to capture these intruders. Based on how they're dressed, Ange suspects that they are assassins. Cosplay is too easy in ancient times. All that you need to do is cover your face with a black bandana and you can be an assassin. He wonders what they are doing in the dungeon. The prison guards fight off the assassins. With their hands full, they fail to stop the fire from spreading and save the people trapped in the dungeons. Ange worries that Luo may not be able to escape and will be burned to a crisp. Ange cannot allow it to happen. He must save Luo, who is in this dungeon because of Ange. A prison guard catches the attention of the other guards, calling for reinforcement to help them capture the assassins. In the chaos, a knife drops in front of Ange. Hesitantly, Ange picks it up not knowing what to do with it, but he decides to bring it with him just in case. All he knows is that he must save Luo before the dungeons are completely engulfed in flames. When he rounds a corner, Ange finally finds Luo slumped on the floor of a cell. Surprised by the appearance of his monarch, Luo rushes forward to see him, the cold prison bars separating the two. Luo asks what Ange is doing in such a place. Ange explains that he came to bring him some medicine, but flame erupted in the dungeons, and they must hurry to get out. Ange uses the knife to dislodge the locks and opens the cell for Luo. I don't know how he did it with a knife, but he did it. Seeing Luo in this state, he feels pity for his friend and asks him if he is all right. Luo assures him that all of his injuries are shallow and not life-threatening. He reveals that the fire is part of his plans. Ange looks at him with a combination of surprise and horror. He thinks that the assassins might be a part of the plan too. Luo admits that those assassins are trained to distract the guards and sacrifice themselves for the purpose of getting Luo out. He thought that the mission to save Ange was a failure, so he decided to escape from this dungeon and wait for another opportunity to save Ange. Luo had the foresight to create a backup plan in the event that he failed to get Ange out of Yi country. One should always have a backup plan and a backup plan. He did not expect to see Ange in the dungeons and believed that it must be the gods' will for Ange to be here at the most opportune time. He excitedly convinces Ange to come back with him to Yunlei. He thinks that all this is divine intervention. Ange looks at him helplessly. He lowers his eyes, unable to meet Luo's hopeful gaze. He tells Luo that they should focus on getting out. He removes Luo's hand, grabs his robes, and leads him out of the dungeons. Luo can feel that Ange is not at all thrilled to be saved. As they get near the flames, Ange gives Luo instructions on where to go once he is out of the dungeons. Luo can tell the Ange's instructions are only for Luo. He plans to let Luo escape alone. He halts in his steps, preventing Ange from moving forward up the stairs that would lead to his freedom. He begs Ange to come with him. Ange replies that Muki has been very helpful and that he has decided to stay. He adds that he would be grateful if Luo watches over Ange's younger brother, Yanyu. Ange worries about his brother, who is too young and needs guidance. He's such a great brother. Full of conviction, Luo shouts that the only monarch he wants to serve is Ange and continues to convince Ange to come with him. Ange chastises him for acting impulsively. He knows that Muki will never let him go. If Luo attempts to take Ange away and if they are caught, the chances of Luo ever getting out of this alive will be slim to none. Luo suspects that Ange does not want to leave. Taking the lead, Luo drags Ange up the stairs leading to the exit. Ange coughs as the acrid smoke assaults his throat. Above them, the roof became brittle due to the fire. The wooden ceiling splinters and caves on them. Ange sees this and pushes Luo out of the way. From outside, Muki arrives at the dungeon entrance. Smoke sifts out of the opening while guards stand at attention. Muki asks them what has happened. A guard reports that assassins infiltrated the dungeons and a fire broke out. Furthermore, Subdirector Ange is still inside. The news causes Muki to panic. Without hesitation, he enters the dungeons. As he steps in, he hears someone scream Ange's name. The guard tries to stop him, as it is dangerous to venture in, but Muki does not hear him. As he goes deeper, he sees Ange protecting a slumped Luo from the fire. Fear grips his heart as the ceiling caves in on his beloved. Is this the end of Ange? Ange freezes as the burning ceiling falls on them. From his shadows, he hears someone call his name. Ange wakes up in a lavish room. Sweat drips from his forehead, and he tries to catch his breath. The thumping of his heart is uncontrollable. A maid approaches him, relieved that Ange is awake. Ange asks where he is and how he got there. The maid tells him that Ange has slept for 24 hours and asks if he wants to eat. Ange is surprised that he slept that long. Ange tries to piece together the events before he wakes up. He remembers that he was in the dungeon, and the beams supporting the ceiling collapse. Looking at his hands, Ange realizes he is not hurt, which would have been impossible. Ange is reminded of his dream. One person comes to mind. He asks the maid if Muki saved his life. The maid's eyes become shifty when she tells him she has no idea. The maid remembers the Crown Prince's strict instructions to allow Ange to rest and keep quiet about what she knows. Ange looks down dejectedly. There's no way that Muki would save him, and he's a fool even to entertain the thought. Muki would punish him if he saw Ange taking Luo out of prison. Muki has no reason to save him. Remembering Luo, Ange asks the maid what happened to him. The maid answers that Luo is all right, to which Ange smiles, relieved that his friend is still alive. The maid is disappointed by Ange's response, risking being punished for speaking out of turn. She reprimands Ange for asking about another man's well-being as soon as he wakes. He has not asked if the Crown Prince is all right. She sees in anger, about to reveal what Muki has done for Ange. How could he know if you don't tell him? From behind her, a voice shouts for her to stop talking. When she turns, she quickly prostrates on the floor, hoping to be granted leniency. Muki enters the bedroom. He walks towards Ange while laying out all of his crimes, jailbreaking, conniving with the assassins to cause havoc and start a fire in the dungeons. All this to save Luo. Never in his wildest imagination did he think that Ange was capable of such things. Ange looks up to him dumbly. When Muki crosses his arms in front of him, his sleeves slip down his wrist, revealing that his hands are covered in bandages. Ange sits up and gently grabs Muki's arm. He raises Muki's sleeves and reveals that the bandages cover both arms up to the elbows. Ange finally connected two and two. Muki is the one who saved him from the fire. When he asks Muki this, the Crown Prince pulls his arm back and tells Ange that none of it is his business. Ange feels torn. Muki still saved his life even when he believed Ange was working with the assassins. He realizes that Muki has protected him all this time. There must be a reason for Muki to take him away from Yunle. Muki has never lied to Ange and has never hurt him deliberately. Ange reaches out, grabbing Muki's arm. He begs him to listen even if Muki does not believe him. He explains that he only intended to treat Luo's injuries. Tears stream down his face due to his need to be heard. He further explains that his involvement is all coincidence. When he arrived at the dungeon, a fire broke out. He does not want Luo to die in the fire, so he attempts to get him out. Luo saved him once, and Ange wants to repay him for his kindness. He confesses that he only sees Luo as a friend who once saved his life. However, his feelings do not go any deeper. He wipes his tears away, and between sobs, he begs Muki to believe him. Muki turns his head towards Ange. He stills for a moment, then touches Ange's hand that was clinging to him. He can't help but be enamored by Ange. Looking at Ange's pitiful face, his heart softens. He lets out a sigh and sits on the bed. Putting his hand on Ange's face, he promised not to punish Luo severely and would have a doctor attend to his wounds. However, there is a condition. Ange must no longer shed any tears for Luo. He kisses the top of Ange's head, his hands working towards his sash. All of Ange's tears are his and no one else's. Two lovebirds happily sing outside of the Crown Prince's window. Muki lies beside Ange, watching his eyes flutter due to drowsiness. He asks Ange if he is tired. Ange denies being tired, and Muki teases him that Muki must not have exhausted Ange enough. Ange panics, not ready for another round. Muki lifts him up and promises not to tease Ange further. He needed to help Ange change his clothes so that they could go to the dungeon and release Luo. Ange blushed and insisted on getting change on his own. Shyly, he thanks Muki for fulfilling his promise. Muki looks at Ange in disappointment. He pats Ange's head, lamenting that his gratitude is the most that he can get out of Ange. However, he has yet to attain the one thing he wants the most, which is all of Ange. That's asking a little too much. Aim a bit lower. They visit Luo in the dungeon. On top of his previous wounds, Luo suffers some burns due to the fire. When he looks up, the sight of Muki holding Ange is like vial in his mouth. Calling Ange, Luo does not understand what's going on. Ange runs towards Luo but is stopped by the metal bars keeping the prisoners in. Muki orders a guard to open the door for Luo. Luo shouts at Muki, asking what he intends to do next. His distaste for the crown prince is so strong that he does not care to show respect. Ange tries to calm him down by telling him it is not what it seems. He opens the door and enters the dank cell. He explains that Muki will not punish Luo for infiltrating the Imperial palace and causing havoc in the dungeons. He tells Luo that he will be set free. Luo can't believe it. There's no way that Muki would do such a thing. He won't be kind to Luo. The only reason for Muki to pardon Luo is if Ange promises him something. At Ange's look of guilt, he realized that he guessed right. He screams at Ange to never forget his status. As Yunli's monarch, he should not stoop so low. It will be better if he dies rather than subject himself to the whims of the enemy. Ange tells him that he has not forgotten. Luo insists that he shouldn't let Muki threaten him and that Luo came to save him. As Luo has failed to save Ange to keep their honor and for the sake of their country, they should both enter the gates of the afterlife together. Luo would rather pass away than be humiliated and lose his integrity. Luo seems to be severely brainwashed to believe that they should just off themselves if they don't succeed. Muki step in. If Luo is so eager to face the gods of the afterlife, then Muki would gladly make it happen. Ange shields Luo and looks at Muki pleadingly. He realized that he must stop Luo from coming back to get him. He must break his resolve and spirit so that he would not endanger his life again for Ange. Ange kneels in front of Luo and tells him to go back to Yunli and help his brother Yanyu or live the rest of his life in seclusion. Whichever he decides, he must never come back to Yi State. As he releases Luo from his confines, Ange confesses that he is a coward and does not wish to die. He is not someone worth saving. Luo couldn't believe what he was hearing. He wonders if Ange truly fears death or if he has fallen in love with the crown prince of Yi. Betrayed, Luo takes it out on Ange, demanding to know if Ange has forgotten what they've been taught since they were young. He grabs Ange, reminding him that a scholar may bow his head in the face of death, but not when humiliated. Luo will not allow Ange to grovel at Muki's feet. Ange coughs as he tries to take in as much air. Muki calls his name in a panic and punches Luo to get him off Ange. After dealing a hard blow to Luo's face, Luo slumps onto the cold ground. Muki quickly attends to the coughing Ange, asking if he's all right. In his disheveled state, Luo turns to Muki, his voice laced with venom. He accuses Muki of making Ange the way he is now. He lifted himself off the ground and proceeded to attack Muki. Muki dodges the attack and grabs Luo by his shoulder and throws him back to the ground. He towers over Luo, telling him he has no right to say such things. Muki blames Luo for imposing his ideology on Ange. Muki blames Luo and all the other people who place the responsibility on Ange's shoulders, making him carry the burden. He's kind of born into it, too. Muki cannot contain his anger as he throws punches upon punches at Luo. Ange screams at him to stop. Ange runs to Muki, grabbing Muki's arm, begging him to stop. Muki looks down on Luo with unbridled hate. He tells him that if it were not for the promise he made to Ange, Luo would have been beaten up so badly that he'd meet his ancestors in the afterlife. He tells Luo that his self-righteousness and integrity are toxic to the one he wants to save. He finds Luo's actions ridiculous. Ange realizes that this is what differentiates Muki from the rest. Everyone sees him as a proud monarch, but only Muki sees him as a person. Muki leads Ange out of the cell and orders someone to restrain Luo and send him back to Yunli. He tells Luo never to come to see them again. Luo struggles as the guards grab a hold of him. He screams at Ange, calling him a traitor for being the crown prince's plaything. Ange realizes that even Luo treats him as a shameful person. There is nothing left in Yunli for Ange. He wonders what he should do. Muki can't bear to see him sad. He calls Ange's attention, touching his face to make him look at him. Ange tells him that he is all right and wants to return to their bedroom. As Ange walks in front of Muki, he passes by his old cell. Compared to the rest of the prison, this space is clean, fully furnished, and well kept. He is touched that Muki cares about him that way. Muki reminds him that Ange suggested the improvements. Ange is touched. He remembers joking that he wanted to renovate the place but did not expect Muki to maintain the cell. The day has been an emotional roller coaster for Ange. Tears stream down his face. Muki asks him what made him cry. He tells Ange to forget about everything Luo says. Ange does not owe anyone anything. Ange answers that he is not crying because of Luo. He's crying because no one has ever treated him this way. No one has ever taken his jokes seriously and takes on troublesome tasks to bend to his whims. Muki watches Ange wipe off a stray tear from his eye. He wonders how he could make Ange forget about the people who made him sad. He asks Ange if they are returning to his old habits of not saying anything. Ange must be so moved that he is left speechless. Muki teases Ange that since he loves this place, they can also do it in the cell. Muki suggests that it would be far too exciting. Ange pushes Muki off of him, annoyed that he would tease him. Ange tries his old bed and slumps on the soft, bouncy mattress. He tells Muki that he feels nostalgic about the place and that Muki should stop talking nonsense. Muki comments that Ange has been acting like a spoiled little boy, which made Ange more annoyed. Muki tells him that he is only joking. The cell is too damp and humid that it will not do any good to Ange's health as he has not yet fully recovered from his illness. Ange pouts and tells Muki not to treat him like a child. Suddenly, an extreme headache assaulted Ange, which made him slump deeper on the mattress. Muki immediately runs to his side in worry. He asks if Ange had another headache, to which Ange weakly answers that he has been having many of them recently. Muki presses his lips together and lifts Ange up with his arms. Ange tells him to put him down as many people are waiting outside, and they will surely see them. He asks Muki why he is fussing over a minor ailment. Muki threatens him that if Ange does not want to be intimate now, he better behave. In his head, Muki panics. Ange's condition is only taking a turn for the worse, yet they still don't know how to care for him. He worries about what could happen if this continues. Ange slept in the Crown Prince's bedroom again that night. When morning comes, a maid greets him as he wakes up, offering him his medicine. Ange looks at the bowl and realizes that Muki must have ordered the maids to care for him. He thinks that when one is presented with true feelings, it is hard to reject them without reservations. His thoughts move on to Luo, who must have arrived at Yunle. Luo must be very disappointed, if not ashamed of him, for succumbing to the will of the enemy prince. Ange coughs while the maid tries to soothe him, reminding him that he must take good care of himself and not worry the crown prince. Ange rushes her off, telling her that he's used to his poor health and does not think that the medicine could help his condition. In Muki's study, Muki listens to the maid's report. She tells him that Ange has been taking the medicine, but his condition has not improved. The maid suspects that Ange is probably depressed, which is why he seems weak. Muki stops what he is doing and dismisses the maid, giving her instructions to continue caring for Ange. The eunuch assisting him presented an idea of what would make Ange happy. Muki smiles at him, encouraging him to stay more. The eunuch suspects that Ange must be sad because he is homesick. He recommends sending in some of Ange's previous assistants to serve him, as having familiar faces around would make him feel at home. Muki thinks it is a good idea and immediately writes a letter to Yunle to have two of Ange's former servants come to Yi country. The eunuch receives the letter and sends it to Ange's brother, Luo Ange. In Yunle, the letter arrives in the hands of Luo Ange, the current vassal of Yunle. When the letter arrived, he was at the Hun Nuan Pavilion in the Yunle Imperial Palace. He shouts in surprise. He can't believe that the Crown Prince of Yi would request two of Ange's trusted servants to come over to Yi and serve him. He does not understand what the Crown Prince wants. He thinks the Crown Prince must be hinting at replacing him with Ange. He wonders if he has been caught. His frantic worrying is stopped by a soothing voice telling him to calm down. A man dressed in a vermilion robe taps at a birdcage, seemingly teasing the trapped bird inside. He tells Yanyu not to lose his calm and assures him that the Crown Prince only wants some servants to serve his brother. Does this mean that Yanyu has a hand in what happened to his older brother? The eunuch dressed in red robes eases Yanyu's worries, assuring him that the Crown Prince of Yi only wanted servants with whom Luo Ange is familiar with. The man in red robes was introduced in previous chapters as Kong Guang. He reasons that the Crown Prince probably only wants to make Ange happy. Luo Yanyu doesn't understand. He concludes that the Crown Prince and his brother must be like them. Like what? The man wearing red robes walks closer to Yanyu, touching his face. He tells Yanyu that it is possible, but it may not be consensual. He smiles at Yanyu, telling him it will be a good opportunity for them to get rid of Ange for good. Yanyu tells him that it is enough that Ange cannot return to Yunle. Therefore, there is no need to take any more drastic actions. The other man's eye darkens as there is no guarantee that Ange won't return. Now that Ange is in a relationship with the Crown Prince of Yi, he may gain more power and one day be able to take the throne away from Yanyu. He asks Yanyu if he wants to go back to being a powerless second prince. So, He was in it. He plotted his brother's fall together with his lover Kong Guan. He reminds Yan Yu of what they have been doing but have not yet succeeded. This is their chance to make it happen. Yan Yu caves to his suggestions, not wanting to disappoint the other man. The man wearing red robes licks his lips. Success is near, he can taste it. He touches Yan Yu's face, assuring him that they will succeed this time. He's manipulating the second prince. He's the mastermind. In the Eastern Palace, maids assist Luo Ange in his bath. Medicinal herbs fill a bath as large as a regular pool. If this is the tub, how big is their pool? That is if they have one. The crown prince instructed them to prepare this bath for Ange. The medicinal herbs were specially formulated by the Imperial physician to help Ange get better. A maid tells Ange to relax as the herbs will take an hour to take effect. Ange does not feel any better and thinks that Muki is wasting resources by making him bathe in these expensive herbs. He thinks to himself that he shall chastise Muki when he returns. Soon, he is dozing off as the relaxing properties of the herbs take effect. Muki walks to the bath, and the maids scramble to kneel in front of him. He tells them to leave, and they quickly comply. He notices that Ange has been sleeping a lot. He kneels down, touching Ange's hair. He kisses Ange's hair, promising not to let anything bad happen to him. When Ange wakes up, he sees Muki's face. He reaches his hand to caress Muki's face, asking him why he looks upset. Muki explains that he saw Ange sleeping in the bath and was worried that he would drown. That's a valid thing to worry about. Ange shyly turns his head away, explaining that a recent cold made him sleepy and that he does not usually get so sleepy. Muki reprimands him for working too much and encourages him to take occasional naps. Ange blushes at Muki's caring words. Muki tells him that he should get out of the water as it is getting cold. There are two people that he'd like to introduce Ange to. Ange asks who they are, but Muki wants to keep it as a surprise. He asks Ange if he wants him to carry him there, and Ange quickly tells him no. Ange dresses in his usual lavender silk robes. He wonders what Muki is up to. Stepping out of the changing screen, Ange asks where those people are. To his surprise, two familiar faces greet him. The two kowtow to the ground, expressing how much they missed Ange. One of them even cried, but he smiles sinisterly behind his sleeves when he asks Ange if he's all right. Ange recognizes these two men as Yu and Ting. He helps them up and asks them to stop crying and to explain why they are at Yi State. One of them explained that the crown prince ordered Ange's favorite servants to come to Yi State to serve Ange. The two took this chance to volunteer. Ange turns to Muki for an explanation of why he did that. Muki explains that Ange has been depressed and thought that seeing familiar faces would make him happy. That's very thoughtful. It won't be a problem for Muki if Ange has his own servants from home to take care of him. Ange appreciates the gestures and asks why Muki would go to this extent to make him happy. Muki shyly tells him that it is probably because he owes Ange in a previous life. Ange squeezes Muki's arm, telling him that he may never get to pay him back for all the good things he did for him. Ange might think so, but Muki can think of many ways for Ange to pay him back. He pulls Ange towards the bed and pushes him down on the mattress. Embarrassed, the two servants cover their faces, and Muki tells them to leave. You showed them pretty early what they will be dealing with. One of them turns his head back to have one last look at Ange before leaving. He prays that Ange would never blame him. Another one with nefarious motive. This manga does not run out of characters to unlock. In the Crown Prince's bedroom, Ange wakes up in the Crown Prince's lavish bed. He hears the voice of one of his favorite servants calling him. He identifies the servant to be Yu, who asks him if he is ready to get up so he can help him wash and dress. Ange happily tells him to help him get up. He notices that Ange's health has improved. When he was a monarch in Yunle, Ange couldn't even get up early, especially during the cold months. Ange chucks it to the tonics that he receives daily. If not for those medicinal herbs, he could not bear Muki's stamina in bed. He tells him that the Crown Prince even instructed them to make sure that Ange is happy and eating well. Yu believes that the Crown Prince must love Ange and that he can be trusted. I like this one already. Ange reprimands him for talking nonsense, but the other tells him frankly that he is telling it as he sees it. Ange tells Yu to be more careful with his words as they are not in Yunle. Cowed, Yu promises to be more careful. Ange is worried for his servants, who are still so young. He needs to make sure that they do not get in trouble. Ange walks closer to his other servant, Ting. Ting bows to him, calling him by his old title. Ange tells him that he must address him as Sir from now on and asks him why he looks upset. Ting explains that he is only reacting to a new place and that he is a bit homesick. Ting remembers the instructions given to him by a man dressed in red robes. The man tells him that if he accomplishes the task he has placed on him, then he will be rewarded handsomely. Otherwise, he will end his sister's life. Ting looks down in worry, and Ange can see the change in him. Poor guy, he's being blackmailed into it. Ange steps closer to Ting in an attempt to comfort him. Ting realizes that he is unable to hide his worry, which could make Ange suspect that something is going on. He apologizes to Ange and explains that he was distracted due to being homesick. Ange pats his head, telling him to join him on his little stroll around the garden. He then instructs Yu to tell the servants not to send the tonics during lunchtime. Yu quickly obeys. Ange Kaimi thinks to himself that Ting is just a kid who is prone to daydreaming. Ange's the kind of boss you'd like to work for. They walk towards the Imperial garden. As he watches his reflection on the pond, Ange contemplates the fact that even you can clearly see that Muki has feelings for Ange. He asks himself when he would stop lying to himself. Maybe it's really time to open up to Muki and tell him about your dreams. Behind him, Ting is having his own issues. The cups and bowls in the Eastern Palace are closely guarded, and he can't find a chance to put poison in Ange's food. As Ange nears the pond, Ting realizes that it is deep. It opens up an opportunity to get rid of Ange, who does not know how to swim. Thinking that this may be his only chance, Ting quietly sneaks behind Ange, ready to push him. Yu's voice stops him before his hand can connect with Ange's back. Yu cheerfully screams at them that the cook made Ange's favorite snacks and that the servants will bring them over. Instead of pushing Ange, Ting's hand connects with Ange's cheek. Ange wonders about Ting's weird behavior and asks what he's doing. Ting pretends to fuss over Ange's clothes, wiping off non-existent dirt. Ange wonders why Ting is being too bold. Ange tells Ting not to mind the dirt and asks him to sit under the pavilion with Ange. Yu lays the snacks on the table in the pavilion for Ange's enjoyment. He explains that the Crown Prince asked the cooks to prepare the snacks for Ange and asks Ange if he would like to try them all. Ange quickly took a piece. Stating that Yu's mouth was watering, he offered him some snacks. He's cute. He tells Ting to take a seat and partake in the snacks. Ting appreciates the snacks. He came from a poor family and did not have the money to buy snacks. They would pick some sweet leaves from the woods to satisfy any craving for sweets. When he became Ange's servant, he was grateful as the monarch treated them well. He did not treat them like servants, and he had a taste of these wonderful snacks. I feel so sorry for him. He takes a bite of the treat as his eyes water. A tear slides down his cheek as he thinks to himself that he is now forced to betray the one person who has been so kind to him. Ange looks at Ting, worried that he is acting weirdly. Ange remembers that Ting would buy too many sweets. He reprimanded him once for getting too many as they would spoil if not preserved properly. But Ting insists that it is necessary as he can only leave the palace a few times and wants to bring nice things for his sister, who loves sweets, wanting to cheer up Ting. Ange asks him about his sister. He tells Ting that he envies the love between him and his sister as the two can rely on each other. But Ting does not look happy and shifts his eyes away from Ange. He tells Ange that his sister got married before the new year. He clenches his fist in anger. It is Unique Kong's fault. If he does not do what the Unique tells him, his sister will not survive. She will be married off. He tells Ange that he saw some of the sweet leaves he used to eat when he was young, and that he shall get some of those so that Ange can taste them, too. Ange delightfully agrees while Yu continues to munch on the sweets happily. Ting runs to the garden until he comes across a tree with red blooming flowers. It's an oleander tree that his mother once told him not to eat as it is highly toxic. Every bit of the tree could end a man's life when eaten. Breathless from his run, Ting brings a handful of leaves to Ange, promising him that the leaves taste like sugar. Ange excitedly extends his hand towards the leaves and takes a bite. Ting watches Ange consume the leaf, his hand shaking at his side. In his head, he begs for Ange's forgiveness. His sister is his only family, and he can't afford to lose her. This poor guy. But there has to be another way. Ange's face contorts in disgust at the bitter taste of the leaf. He tells Ting that he must have gotten it wrong. Ting tells him that he must have made a mistake as it had been so long since he had gathered those leaves to eat. He asks for Ange's forgiveness. Ange tells him not to mind it and invites them to return to the Eastern Palace for lunch. When the three enter the dining hall, Muki is waiting for them. The sound of their laughter makes Muki smile. He's glad he ordered these two to come to Yi State and care for Ange. Ange seems to be happier with him around. He tells Ange that he heard reports that Ange is having a good time with his servants in the garden. He pouts that Ange might have forgotten about Muki, if not for the food. Ange realizes that he must give Muki some attention too. As he sits down, he explains that the two are very young and are in a new environment. Ange is just helping them settle down in the palace. Muki lets out a sigh. He walks over to Ange's seat and tells him that he does not want to be replaced. He hints that he wants Ange to invite him for a long walk. Ange remembers the dream where he promises to take Muki on a tour to see all of Yunli's wonderful scenery. This feels like déjà vu. Ange shyly tells him that the crown prince grew up in a beautiful palace surrounded by beautiful things. He does not need Ange to give him a tour. The rejection stings Muki, and he pulls back from Ange, upset that even now, Ange treats him like a stranger. Ange smiles and tells him that one day in the future, he shall give Muki a tour of the city of Yunli, a place that Ange is familiar with. Muki looks at him, his heart soars at hearing the promise. Ange changes the topic by focusing on the food. He even tells Muki to stop talking while they are eating and reminds him of the scholar's teaching. Muki tells him to forget about what the scholars say. What's important is the promise made today, and he wishes that Ange does not forget it again. He looks like Ange promised him the moon, and he's finally hinting that Ange made the same promise in the past. Hearing this, Ange pauses, wondering if his dream is indeed true. Suddenly, Ange shivers and drops the chopsticks he'd been holding. He holds tightly to his stomach as he shivers. Muki grabs him quickly, immediately calling the Imperial physician. Despite the pain he's feeling, Ange tells Muki to stop worrying as he probably ate something that made him like this before he completely blacks out. The sound of Muki's voice is the last he heard before succumbing to darkness. Oh no, the poison is finally taking effect. Muki lifts Ange up from his seat and tells the maids to hurry up and call the Imperial physician. The two maids frantically exited to do his bidding. Muki assures Ange that the doctor is on his way and that he will be fine. In the Crown Prince's bedroom, Ange continues to suffer the pain. Muki stays at his bedside, making sure that he gets better. He lifts up Ange to help him drink his medicine. Ange cannot take the bitter taste and proceeds to vomit all over the blanket. Muki assures him that the medicine he drank is an emetic that will make him vomit the poison out of his system. This is nothing new to Ange. Since he was a child, his life has been in constant threat of people trying to kill him. Even when he was no longer emperor, the people who wanted to kill him had yet to give up. He weakly lays his head on Muki's shoulder and asks what poison it is. That is so sad. To live with the constant threat of assassination is just too much. The Imperial physician reports that Ange's symptoms are probably caused by the oleander leaf that he ate by mistake. It's good that he only ate so little and was treated quickly. Ange contorts in anger, realizing what this means. Muki asks when he ate the leaf and if he did not know that the leaf was toxic. Ange did not answer him, upset that his constant companion had tried to murder him. That is betrayal of the highest form. At 2, Brutus. Muki tells him that he is under full control of everything that is served from the kitchen, and it is impossible for any mistake to occur. There must be someone who plotted against Ange. Muki wants to know who it is that tried to kill Ange from under his nose. It can only be someone currently in the palace. The Imperial physician agrees with him. Before he could leave, Ange grabbed his hands, begging him to stay. Muki assures him that he's not going anywhere and that Ange should not get scared. Muki kisses his forehead, assuring Ange that nothing can harm him when he's around. Ange cannot stop the tears forming in his eyes and hugs Muki. Ange has never felt safe in anyone's arms before. Muki calms his hands through Ange's hair. Pulling at the curtains of their 4-poster bed, he pushes Ange on the mattress, keeping him safe. He just got poisoned. Give him a break. Outside their window, 2 lovebirds sleep beside each other, basking in each other's presence. Muki covers Ange with the blanket, worried that Ange must be too tired. He assures Ange that he'll be here to watch him. He watches Ange as he sleeps restlessly, his neck marred by their most recent lovemaking. Knowing that Ange is safely tucked in bed, Muki leaves his bedside, vowing to punish whoever dared to poison his beloved. He will not let them get away with it unscathed. 2 soldiers greet Muki as soon as he steps out of his palace. He tells them to report what happened that day. He gave them strict orders to watch Ange's every move and protect him. How could they miss Ange eating an oleander leaf? The 2 soldiers kowtowed, begging for leniency. They explain that Ange does not like them near him when he's taking a stroll and did not notice when he ate the oleander leaf. They admit to their lapse of judgment and ask Muki to punish them. Muki waives their request to be punished and asks who else is in the garden with Ange. The two answer that Ange's two servants were with him during the day and ask if they should take them in for questioning. I can't blame them. Ange has been refusing their presence since day one. Muki catches on. He tells the guard not to alert Ange's servants. If the two were involved, Ange would be the first to interrogate them. However, he orders the guards to keep an eye on the two. Turning away from the two guards, Muki tells them to go to the Office of Punishment to get what they deserve. It will be their punishment for failing to protect Ange. The two obey. It's weird that they have an office solely meant for punishing people. Although, I've seen it in other manhwas, so such things must have existed. When Ange opens his eyes, the first person he asks for is Muki. That's a great improvement. He now looks for Muki whenever he wakes. A maid tells him that the crown prince went out to discuss an official summons with the members of the cabinet. She asks Ange if there's anything he needs. Ange answers that he does not need anything now and asks her to tell Ting to put some ink in the study so that Ange can practice his calligraphy. Ange realizes that whoever it is that plotted his death has not yet given up and even used someone close to him to carry out the evil deed. I'm glad that Ange understands what's going on and does not lash out of anger. When Ange enters the study, he finds Ting dazedly standing beside the desk, grinding the ink. Ange asks him if the ink is ready. The sound of his voice startles Ting, and the inkstones crash to the ground in pieces. Ting kneels on the floor and apologizes for dropping the inkstone. Ange walks over to him, kneels down, and helps Ting get up. He tells Ting that dropping the ink is no big deal. He can start over with a fresh inkstone, and there's no need to panic. Ange is such a nice employer. Ting thanks him for his kindness and tells him that he's just being hard on himself. Ting wonders why Ange looks at him the way he used to. There's no change in his demeanor. By now, they would have known that it was him who poisoned Ange. He's really shaking in his boots now. Ange tells Ting that they grew up together, and he is aware of Ting's absent-mindedness. He wonders if he only pointed it out once. Kneeling on the floor, facing each other, Ange holds Ting's hands. Ting tells him that Ange has always been generous and kind and that he is happy to be his servant. Finally cutting to the chase, Ange looks at him straight in the eye. Ting knows that Ange is merciful and nostalgic. He asks if Ting thought that Ange would show him mercy after doing something so horrible. Ting bows to the ground, begging for forgiveness. Ange asks Ting if he is truly unaware that the leaves he presented to Ange are oleander leaves, which are very poisonous. Ting insists that it was an honest mistake, begging Ange to believe him. Ange gauges Ting's reaction. He knows him well. Ting wouldn't panic like this if he really gave it to him by mistake. I admire Ange for keeping his cool. I could never be cordial to someone who tries to poison me, even if it is an old friend. Ange tells Ting that he believes it is just an honest mistake and is messing around with Ting. Ting did not expect Ange's response. Ange picks up the brush. Nostalgia overcomes him as he reminds Ting that he watched him grow up. He knows that he is timid yet soft-hearted. There's no way that Ting would do anything to hurt him. He tells Ting not to mention what happened to anyone. Surprised at the kind response, Ting kneels beside Ange's seat, grabbing his arm with both hands. He leans forward, a guilty look on his face. The face of someone about to confess. Go ahead. Tell them the truth. Ting approaches Ange holding his hands. Before he could confess, he hesitates. He knows that if he tells Ange, Kong Guan is a heartless man. He will surely know and will never release his sister. Ange holds his hand, encouraging him to speak. He lets go of Ange's hand shakily. He tells Ange that he only wants Ange to know that he is very sorry and promises to never make the same mistake. Yeah, Kaju could kill someone by a simple mistake. He thanks Ange profusely for his mercy. Ange realizes that Ting must be in such a bind. Whoever set Ting up to do this must have thoroughly planned for everything. At this time, Ange must act as if he suspects nothing. Otherwise, the enemy may be alerted that Ting has failed and changed course. Ange can only investigate in secret to discover who these people are. Ange plans to reveal who they truly are. You're in for a great surprise. In the cabinet, Muki does some investigations of his own. He throws various objects off his desks in his anger. Muki found out about the traitor in his palace. His mother sent him a pure white fox as gift. It looks nice and innocent and has been sitting in his backyard. He wanted Ange to see the fox and orders the guard to see to it. He tells his trusted guard to distract Ange long enough to stay in his backyard with the fox. While Ange is in the backyard, he orders the guard to take Ting to the dungeon. He will be the one to interrogate him later. I pray for Ting's soul. In the crown prince's study, a maid approaches Ange to tell him about the fox. Ange is curious about the fox and wants to know if the fox is in the Eastern Palace. The maid tells him that the crown prince specifically asked to have it sent to the palace to impress Ange. The prince asked the empress to send the fox over and pestered her until she agreed. Realizing the extent of Muki's efforts, Ange agrees to see the fox. The maid eagerly leads the way for him. As Ange follows the maid, Ting watches him leave, full of regret. From the shadows, two guards lurch forward and grabs hold of him before he can shout for help. He realized that the crown prince must have figured out his involvement in Ange's poisoning. He thinks about what he would do. Thinking about his cute sister, whom he loves, he has no choice. You must not confess. You just can't. If he confess, Kong Guan will harm his sister. If Muki catches him, he will surely punish him severely. Ting pushes them off him and makes a run for it. From inside his sleeves, he grabs a black pill. He swallows it quickly before the guards can stop him. As blood dribbles from his mouth, his life flashes before him. He remembers serving Ange, always making mistake after mistake, always apologizing to him. But not once did Ange severely punish him. He falls down to the cold floor, lifeless. In the meeting room, the guards report to Muki. He asks them what happened, and they explain that they did not see the poison hiding in Ting's sleeves. They tell Muki to punish them for their incompetence. Muki tells them to not worry about it and to bury Ting's body somewhere. How is he going to explain Ting's absence to Ange? He warns them to never mention this event to anyone. He also tells them to observe the other servant who came with Ting. No, not you. He tells them to watch Yu's movements, and if they find him suspicious, then they are free to dispose of him, too. I sincerely hope that Yu is as innocent as he looks. Ange comes back from his excursion to the palace's backyard to see the white fox, bringing the fox with him. He enters the dining room. Muki waits for him at the table and asks him if he likes the fox. Ange puts down the magnificent creature, while telling Muki that it is his first time to see a fox as beautiful as this one. The little fox barks at him, competing for his attention. Ange is delighted that the fox can even do tricks. Muki comments that the fox seems to have taken a liking to Ange and obeys him. Ange tells Muki that he once raised a red fox and tamed it. Muki tells him that since Ange likes the fox so much, then he should reward Muki for making him happy. That's a new take on give and take. Ange fires back that Muki is so shameless to ask for repayment. Seeing that the white fox has Ange's complete attention, Muki stares at the fox, making it bark at him in fear. Muki wants attention too and demands it from Ange. He pouts that Ange has been cuddling with the fox since he came in and Muki is jealous. Ange pushes him away, telling him that he's making a big deal out of a little fox. He tells Muki that they should first enjoy their meal. Ange sits down at the dining table and notices that someone is missing. Ting is not around to serve him. He asks you why he is the only one serving him, to which the servant answers that he has no idea. Muki tells Ange that Ting came to him requesting to go home as something happened at home. Muki tells Ange that he rightfully sent the poor man back home and even had the guards escort him to ensure his safe return. Muki lies through his teeth, telling Ange that he had asked Ting to tell Ange first, but the man does not want to wait. Ting is probably out of the city by now. He lies so smoothly through his teeth, and without a hint of remorse. Ange decides to just let the man go. If he chooses to leave, then he can go. Ange thinks to himself that in spite of Ting's predicament, he would never let anyone who tries to murder him get off without punishment. This is probably for the best. Muki sets his chopsticks down on the table. He turns to Ange and asks him why he looks so unhappy. He shall send another courtier to Yunla to request for another servant that Ange likes. Ange tells him that he is not sad that Ting left, but he has lost his appetite after consuming a lot of light food. He tells Muki that he wants to eat dishes with more meat starting tomorrow. Muki tells him that the Imperial physician recommends staying away from eating meat as Ange may not be able to digest it fully. He tells Ange not to be too stubborn. He tries to coax Ange out of his mood by teasing him. He reminds him that Ange promised to reward Muki after they had their lunch. Ange blushes as he does not remember making such promises to Muki. You told him that you can eat first, and he must have taken it as a promise to get a reward after having lunch. Ange continues to pout while Muki contemplates on how to get Ange to agree. He decides that Ange needs help in fulfilling his promises. Wrapping his arm around Ange, he leans down on the table and picks up a piece of dumpling with his chopstick. Blowing on the hot dumpling, Muki watches Ange's face contort in confusion. He grabs Ange's chin, making him open his mouth and puts the piece of dumpling inside Ange's open mouth. The reward he wants this time is to feed Ange. Ange blushes as he chews on the dumpling.